Evan, while I'm looking for that, if you can introduce yourself to the audience.
Yes, I'm actually, if you might consider it, the mirror image of JF, in the sense that I actually joined the Crystal mothership in 1997, and that was basically, I received a CD in the post called Seagate Software 6.5, and I was a little bit curious. I stuck it in the tray, and suddenly Crystal Reports and delivery platforms suddenly emerged, and that sparked my interest. I was working on a reporting project for a customer, and I thought, oh, I'll use that. And then a couple of years later, I joined the company, as they say. So I was with Crystal as they started Seagate Software, and then through Crystal Decisions, BusinessObjects, SAP, then some consulting work, and then joined Wiiisdom. And I actually worked for a while as a system administrator for about 8 years. And then after that, decided to join Wiiisdom as I was using the products in the first place. So I thought I might figure out a little bit more. So there you go.
And we're very happy and lucky to have you as well, Evan. And funny enough, your story about the CD here is so many people started on Crystal because of that. I've heard that story so many times that it was actually amazing to see the impact of that day. So
absolutely.
Evan, I'm happy to be with you. So the topic of this session is about, archiving, sharing business object content and with security. So this is the topic that we're going to be talking.
I thought we were doing eyes first.
Okay, you want to do eyes first?
I thought it was in the agenda.
Is this okay now for you to do this one or not? Or I can swap, or what's the best for you?
I've got everything open for eyes right now.
Okay, so just hold on. I'm going to then show that right away. Just give me a second. Okay, so, well, we're going to, okay. So, nope, hold on. I've got the wrong one here. Let me go to this one here in this case. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. So here we go. So the topic right now that we're going to talk about is about how to basically extract the metadata out of business objects and how to leverage it with 360Suite leveraging BI on BI. So it's all about BI and BI. So as you know, in business objects, you've got lots and lots of metadata, and it's not necessarily easy to be using. So there is a concept of what we call BI on BI, which is business intelligence on business intelligence. And here it allows you to have access to extract, have access to metadata, and then basically do some reporting on it. So do some BI on that content. So this is extremely interesting and important because of that, you're able to understand you're doing BI on, for example, who's using the platform, how are they consuming the platform, what is the content not used, what are the resources that are not used, provide lineage information. So there is a lot of valuable information that you're pulling out of that. Within Bobjet, there are a couple limitations here. So today out of the box, yes, definitely you can get some information from the audit. And then you can have some limited access to the CMS. Here, what we're able to put together the CMS, the audit, and the file store together. So this is very powerful here. Also, we're able to get some information about the non-usage. So it's very interesting to understand who's using, but you also want to know what's not being used. It's very important. It's also completely self-service, and it's actually so much self-service that we can provide this information Webby, and also now leveraging OData, we can show this into Power BI. It's pretty cool. Additionally, some issues, it's always very difficult to understand, the W. So who, what, when, why, what's going on within business objects. With 360, basically, the whole idea here is we're extracting the metadata, we populate it into a data mart. We've got 3 universes that are delivered. We've got 50 plus templates that can be customized that we deliver as well with our solution. Of course, the jobs can be scheduled to minimize the impact on production, and everything is centralized in one location. So for all your sub environments, and if you have multiple productions, you can actually centralize it in one location. And of course, in terms of the benefits here, and then we'll go through it, is going to provide you great visibility, what's going on in your platform. You've got some upgrades, migration projects. This is also very powerful because you can understand what's not used. You can document the sources and the targets. Even if tomorrow you decide to sunset, decommission, whatever, it's going to document your environments. If you want to do licensing exercise, it's going to provide you insights of what's used, what's not used in terms of licenses and benchmarks. So, well, Evan, let's finish about the slideshow, and then let's go actually in a demo here. I'll let you share your screen, so I'll stop sharing right away, and I'll let you share.
Okay, thank you, Bruno. Just give me half a second here, and I'll get back to where I need to be. Okay, so let me share my screen here, and I will go. I'm going to share this screen. Nope, wrong screen, beg your pardon. One second, I just need to stop my sharing.
So actually, I did see your screen. So
yep, I just need to flash to the right screen. 1 second.
Not a problem.
That one. Yes. So you should be seeing my BI Launchpad or not?
No, right now we're seeing a web. We're seeing it's
Oh,
not.
I beg your pardon. I know what I'm doing. These two screens are quite similar, so stop share. 1 second.
Not a problem. So here, well, Evan is loading. We're going to show you different template of our reports in Webby that we have within 360 Eyes that are showing how actually you can leverage this metadata. So this is actually the intent of what Evan is about to be showing you. So, and so of course, we're not going to go through all the reports that we have, and just know that all the reports, you can, customize them. Yeah, so Evan.
Okay, 1 second. It's not displaying my screen here. I'm trying to shut everything down. 1 sec.
Okay, well, that's the demo effect.
Sorry,
here.
the demo gods, as they say.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me try one more time here.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning, the reports, you can customize them with the different flavors that you want. And then at the end of this session as well, if we got time, we'll also show you that we can actually extract this information, leverage OData. So we see the same screen again here, Evan.
Oh, for goodness sake, it's ridiculous.
You're showing the BI Launchpad with 360 Eyes custom reports. Is that what you wanted to
That's
show?
where I want to be. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so you're good.
Okay, sorry, I'm seeing the wrong screen. Okay, beg your pardon. So I'm ready to go now, Bruno. So let's launch into this. So here we are looking at our BI Launchpad screen. And inside of this, we have a directory called 360 Eyes. And inside of that, we have a bunch of different reports that essentially provide the sort of information that we're looking for. It's actually quite interesting listening to the answer to the last question on JF session, all of which could be answered by the reports I'm just about to show you. So all those kind of impact and information about the actual environment itself are all basically detailed inside of these reports. So I've actually taken the liberty of opening these reports just to make sure that we don't spend too much time watching me open these things. So I'm just going to open up one called the Impact Analysis Report. And one of the questions we had earlier was, can I see the relationship between universes and objects and documents themselves? And the truth is, absolutely. You can see here that in this particular display, we have a universe, we have the object class, the actual name of the object, the path of the document, the actual document itself, and so on. So basically, we can see that we can actually determine what is going on here in this particular environment. As you can see, a large listing report with all the various components here. And again, it takes just a very little piece of interaction here to basically turn around and say, okay, all I'm going to do is just set this as a section. And now I have all of my access to these. I'm now grouping by any object. So if I ever wanted to turn around and say, well, I know what happens if I actually change the actions object and I actually redefine what that actually means. What is actually going to be impacted? Well, we can see these are the documents that are going to be impacted by any change of that specific objects class. The other thing we can do is to show the available, is to actually show the group tree. Oops, down here. To actually basically be able to navigate our way down through these various objects and see all the components inside. So again, being able to utilize that report to actually be able to, again, get some insight into what the actually object relationship is between the different objects. The other key report that we have is, again, this was another question that was asked, was which particular documents are being used by the system. So which are our regular documents? So we can see in this particular instance, again, we have the document path, we have other information. Here's the particular document, and we can actually see the times this particular document was last used. So in this particular instance, just say for the first particular document here, we can actually see that it's only been acted on 4 times, that it's the last action date in this particular instance was in May, and the number of days since that action is 104. Okay, so we can actually see, you know, very quickly that we have a number of different reports. We can see exactly when they were accessed and so on. And again, through some limited interactivity in this particular report, we can easily turn around and say, okay, for that action count, okay, but again, going into here, we can just do an action count here and go to design and actually, whoops. So let's go back to the 60 here. Second, my thing is frozen. 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to move on to a different report here. That's obviously frozen. I'll go back to my documents here, and I can go to the documentation here, look at impact analysis here, and I'll launch it back from here. So you just view the latest instance from here, beg your pardon. And again, as you can see, you can actually turn around and identify, you know, all the components of that particular the documents, and again, when they're being used, since when, and how long. And again, that will give you some idea on the velocity and so forth of this particular environment here. The other thing you can do is to, again, from a normal perspective, is that you can also track duplicated documents. So one of the things that's very important when you're actually doing a migration or doing any kind of cleanup activity on the process is to identify, well, where are the various documents, where they've been put, and so forth. And typically we find, especially over time, that people are copying their documents from inboxes and they're moving them to their personal folders. And essentially they're the same documents, but basically just distributed around the enterprise platform. So essentially what we can do here is identify in certain circumstances, oh, these are actually the same documents, but they're actually just in different locations. So for example, in this particular instance, we can see that here we have a document called the snapshot summary, but we also have exactly the same document in another directory. And this one happens to be a personal directory. So as part of cleanup, we can again get rid of all that redundancy by being able to track those duplicated reports. And again, that will allow you to do significant cleanup before actually getting onto the migration platform itself. The other useful report that I also use significantly is the user activity report here. So remember, Bruno was making a very important point, which was, okay, we can find out from the audit universe what has happened, but again, we can't necessarily find out what hasn't happened. And this particular example shows that very clearly. So in this particular instance, what we can see is that we're doing usage behavior. So essentially, this particular user has not actually been on the system for a specific period of time. Here is a particular user, and this is the last time they were on the system, and how many actions. So who are our active users? Not only who's logging onto the system and so on, but also who are our active users. So for instance, we can see that obviously there's a lot of users who are not logging on at all. Then we see that this P. Perrier is fairly doing a lot of action. So is a number of other people here. And we can again just find exactly what's going on here. So let me just go back and find out that we're going to go to the user activity. So what we can do, second.
So essentially here you can compare the user activity also through time.
Yeah. Oh, something's going wrong here. Yeah, beg your pardon, Kruna, I forgot that question,
Yes,
sorry.
so you can compare the user activity through time, and then of course
Absolutely,
document it, which is
absolutely.
very handy for regulatory purposes. Like yesterday, I visited a customer, and then you know, the customer was mentioning they've got some recertification to do for SOC compliance, and that is actually the type of report that she would be using for that.
Yeah. And again, one of the other things that's very, very useful is to be able to actually analyze your instance behavior on the platform. So we have a particular report. I don't know what's that. I think I may have been logged off here. I think that's what's going on here. So let me just log off here, leave. I think that's what's going on.
That's part of
So
it.
let me just log quickly back on, and luckily I have all of these set up as instances, so it won't take long to pick these up.
Okay, and then let me see if I can go through some questions while you do that. Okay, I'm just or I'm looking for the questions I have. Give me a second here. Q&A. Okay, here. So is the session going to being recorded? Yes, it is. And looks like there has been an issue on different time zones here. Are you able to combine audit, CMS, and FRS information together? Yes, definitely. This is something that we can do because we extract all this information, we put it through the data mart, and then from there, we're actually able to answer it. Are you doing any impact analysis? Yes, it's something that we do with 360 ISO as lead. So you're back up, Evan. So if you can continue your presentation here.
Absolutely. Okay, so as I say, one of the reports we had obviously was looking at user activity here. And again, we're looking at a situation whereby, again, users have not been logged on at all, or if they have been logged on, you know, exactly when was the last time they've been doing something, and what was their most, you know, which kind of actions were performing on most active. So again, through a design mode, you can just do a sort ascending on here, and you can just do, you know, a sort on this, send here. Just leave it for a second. And then we should be able to see exactly who are our most active users. And then you can see here, we have our active users, but not only that, we can also see that some of our most active users haven't actually done anything for a while. Okay, so in that scenario, even though they actually would say, hey, you're doing a lot of work, actually, they haven't done anything for a while. So that might indicate that they've done a lot of work in the past, but have either moved into a different department or moved into a different setup and so forth. Again, the other element, another report that we can look at is instance of volume information here. So we can actually look at different reports here on this one here. So let me just quickly view the latest instance here. So again, from here, we can see top level aggregations of the distribution of where our information is, which reports are in which locations, what the, you know, the size is in each of those different locations. And then of course, we can break that down into all of these subfolders as well. So every single part of where your activity is recorded. And I remember finding this very, very useful in a situation where we actually suddenly found that there was a lot of activity going in the personal folders. And then we suddenly found out that that was a result of somebody who was actually scheduling a report to run every 5 minutes, and it was, you know, clogging up the system by them actually running it in the personal folders. And by actually using a report like that enables you to basically go in and analyze that very quickly. So a very useful report here. Again, on the scheduling analysis perspective, I think I was just about to bring that report up here. Okay, so I'm going to view the latest instance here. Again, we can see that there's kind of like a scheduling summary here, the most scheduling, you know, which reports are most frequently scheduled, the destination types that they're going to, the format types, recurrence, and so forth. So all of that kind of like top level information. But then you have something like this, where you actually have a large amount of information that's basically, again, just listing information here that allows you to see all the details. But as you can see, there are 65 pages of this. So what you can also do, again, very, very quickly, is you'll go into, you know, looking at something like this and view the instance of here. Okay, but what we can do here is we can actually then say, okay, we're going to use input controls to basically turn around and be able to navigate what we want to do here. So again, I'm put all values here. So that's going to bring back that full same 65 pages here. But then again, just really quickly saying, okay, well, just list me all the failures. What reports are failing, or what reports are, recurring? What are my recurring reports sitting out here, and so forth? So again, you can quickly be able to navigate through this and actually be able to hone in on specifically. So again, I'm really interested in seeing, well, what types have we got that are crystal and so on. So again, just by putting in a very simple input control on top of a delivered report can actually give you a lot of interactivity here to be able to, again, determine a lot of things here. And again, people were asking about, well, can you see the duration date? Absolutely. You can see the scheduled duration here. So you can be able to sort by this value and so forth to, again, find out which are your very expensive reports and so forth. So again, a very valuable tool in terms of actually getting real insight into your environment here.
And Evan, here also the nice thing is you can compare, for example, these durations. So you can compare this information through time as well.
Absolutely.
So
yes, absolutely.
Because overall, you always want, when it comes to time, you always want to benchmark this type of information. And some of our retailers, customers also use, like, for example, this type of report where they rely a lot on business objects, on their scheduling. And if there is an issue in the scheduling, they want to know. So here, instead of being reactive, they're proactive because they can see there is an issue, and then they can address it before getting all the tickets in. So this is really extremely handy.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as we can move into different environments. The other key aspect to gain insight is to, well, what's actually happening within my environment in terms of who's been on the system, what's the scope of the system, and so on. So we can also look at in our security reports. We can also see the ability to actually identify connections and sessions information here. So again, you can actually turn around and say, okay, let me look at this. I'm going to view again the latest instance here. And what this will do is actually will give you a very clear view of what your licensing is going on, who's actually logging onto the system, when they're logging on, and which licenses are being accessed here. So obviously, within the business object framework, there is a concurrent access license, or CAL, and then there's a named license. In this particular instance, we're breaking it down so you can see the two different plots on this particular graph going again over time, indicating exactly what kind of activity there is on the system. And this is a very, very useful tool to be able to understand, are your licenses being worked, used efficiently? Are there times when you're actually getting to peaks where actually you're starting to threaten the amount of licensing that you have? So again, this is a very useful tool to be able to, again, manage your environment from a licensing perspective. I remember, situations where I've been asked, well, I know you're requesting more licenses. Can you show us why you need them? And something like this was a very useful vehicle to turn around and say, well, we're basically hitting peak all the time here. And also, not only that, but through another report, we can identify that there are a bunch of people who are not actually being able to log on. So again, in that scenario, you also have another piece of this setup here, which is, you can also look at failed logons. I think it's in.
Yeah, this is very handy.
Failed login attempts. So again, you could actually just view that particular report again. And again, just to reiterate, you can also refresh against specific things here. So when we have one key point is that whenever we actually write information into the database here, we tag it with a date and time. And this is what Bruno was referencing earlier. That allows us to be able to then essentially be able to, identify things over time. So who's actually logging on over time and things like that. So again, you can see that in this particular scenario, there's been some failed logon attempts with the administrator and other various people. Again, there'll be a message that's indicating, oh, it's some reason that caused that issue. But again, failed logon attempts will allow you in communication with that concurrent access license with the session information to be able to quickly be able to put the case together that you need more licenses. And again, this is all part of managing your environment. The last thing I'd like to do, again, there are many, many reports. Again, I'm showing you just a really a fraction of the ones that we have. As we mentioned, there's over 50 here. But the key point here is also to recognize that, which is, we are writing into a data warehouse. Okay, so we're writing into a data mart, and it's built specifically for reporting. So again, it will support ad hoc analysis. So again, we can just go into here, identify a universe, click OK, and then I'm going to turn around and say, oh, I'm going to have my CMS universe here. So I will pick up my, no, beg your pardon, my reports universe, and I will get the right reports universe here. And I'll click OK. Okay, and I can drag over information here, so I can put my snapshot ID, and so let me just bring over snapshot, and name, CMS, date. Then what I'm also going to do is go into my document and see my information here, and in the document ID, I'm going to have document name. I'll put the document path in here, and there's actually a reason I'm doing this, because we're also going to look at inside of here is document keywords. Okay, and we're going to identify that when we run this keyword, we're actually going to look for any value that has pseudo archive in it. Okay, so I'm going to run this query. Okay, and why am I doing this? Because we're going to be talking about archiving in the future. And what we're doing here is we're using 360 Eyes to basically identify those reports that we need to archive in the future. And when we talk about archiving in the next session, you'll see exactly why this becomes extremely relevant, because we're using Eyes to basically drive a process here of archiving our information as well.
So the other part here that's cool. So this is one scenario. Another scenario, for example, is if you've got some PII information. So essentially here you're able to enter like a tag in the metadata description, like through a tag here, let's say hashtag PII or whatever you want. And the cool thing here is you're actually able to report on the PII itself on, for example, is this used, not used? There's a lot of activity you can do that is very valuable from a regulatory perspective there. So this is, for example, to pseudo archive, but again, this can be used for other purposes in terms of PII or sensitive information.
Yep, so that's what I had prepared in terms of the some of the reports that we have. Apologizing for my log off.
That's part of the live.
But that's the demo, God's sake.
Thank you very much, Evan. We've got a question from Arno as well. Can I see which report has been sent to which email address?
So the answer is actually yes. So let me look at this. So actually, I can do that in my scheduling analysis report. Okay, so do this one. Okay, so which destination? Actually, I'm going to go back to my custom version here, and I'm going to see the destination list of values. And as you can see, one of those is emails. So I can actually see, actually, I've probably got some contracts. Let me just all values here and all values there. Okay, and that's got the ones that are going. So actually, you can see here, they're going off to to this particular instance here. So I can just say it's going off to SI email addresses and so on. So again, this will actually show you that the list is here. Obviously, there's going to be in this particular instance, the report isn't formatted to show the whole email, but trust me, the content is inside of here. So again, what you can do is, again, theoretically, just turn around to say, okay, I can identify and put a search string on a specific email. But yes, that's in there. It's in the destination list instance.
And can you provide the time, at what time it was sent? Is there something you have here?
It'll be sent at the end of the schedule, whatever the schedule end date is, whatever the end time of that will be when it's sent, because that's by definition the last action of the schedule. So that will be when it was sent. Yes.
Okay. Okay, then we have another question. I tried to get the sender. Okay, no, hold on. Hold on. Okay, 360 Eyes reports are based on Audit Universe, or is it custom 360 Universe?
It's basically, there are three data sources. There's the CMS repository, the audit database, and the file repository. So we gain information from each of those. So yes, it ties to the audit database directly, but it doesn't it's basically in conjunction with the CMS and the FRS. So all three of those are data sources for 360 Eyes. Yes.
Yeah, and 360 basically come with its own canned universe. And if we have some 360 customers as well here, and I see some are on, so that as well as now 360 Eyes is part of what we call the web platform. And I think we're going to support the current, let's say the classic 360i's version until end of Q2. And we recommend you, to be migrating to the new version of 360 because it's part of the same platform than the rest of the solutions of 360. And it's actually very, very easy. It's pretty cool to use. Additionally, maybe Evan, you want to show again or not, we build an example where we're also able through OData to feed 360i's 360 information into Power BI as well. So it makes it, it gives you like a big picture as well of all the data you have. So
yeah, I actually stopped sharing for a second, but I can share that back. So yes, this is again using OData. As you can see, 360i's data is the source of here. So again, we're pulling audit information, we're pulling CMS information, and so on. And again, creating an interactive dashboard by being able to change various widgets here and so forth. But the key element here is that we're using Webby to access the data inside of our 360i's warehouse to be able to pull those queries out of that warehouse and then deliver them directly as obviously data blocks into Power BI in this instance, or Excel, or SAP Analytics Cloud, or whatever the option is. It's still the same architecture, and we're just using Power BI as a vehicle to show that right now.
Okay, thank you very much, Evan. So let's go to the next session. So okay, let me share you my screen here. Okay, share. Let me go into slideshow mode. Okay. Okay, do you see my screen, Evan?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so thanks a lot. So the topic here is going to be exchanging about how to archive, how to share, and secure content that you're sharing outside of BusinessObjects. So what we see a lot of customers today, they've got some struggle when it comes to archiving, and this is what we want to address today with Wiiisdom 360. So just a couple facts before we start is 60% of the content basically is not used in the past 13 months. So how do we know that? Is essentially we've been doing assessments for over 15 years with our customers, and we see trends. So we know today that's over 60% of the content is not used in the past 13 months. So it's very important to understand what that content is, and there's a lot of impact on migrations. We'll talk about it after. Another fact is more than 30% of the content is ungoverned. So that means that in general, it's shared through Excel, PDF, and it's very difficult to manage and to control. So there's always some security issues that are related. The benefits of archiving BI content, definitely there is a cost impact because it costs you in terms of storage to keep this content on your platform. And I guarantee you, once you go on the cloud, storage is not free. So you'd better actually, in fact, the good practice is before you do migration, before you do an upgrade, make sure that you archive that content, in particular for cloud migrations, and think through the entire process. If you do an upgrade or migration, as mentioned, it's important to archive it because there is a clear impact. There is a clear correlation between the amount of content that you are going to archive and your time and the cost for migration. So just imagine you basically remove 60% of the content, or you archive it before migration. Well, definitely your migration will go that much faster on that, and it's going to cost you a lot less. And of course, this content is the next time you do an upgrade or whatever, you don't need to worry about it. Of course, when you're archiving is important if you want to sunset, decommission, it's something that's very important as well because you need to keep access to all this information. It's very important in terms of regulation. When you do archiving, and this is no surprise here, this is actually based on this document that is shared at the end of the presentation. But basically, there are 3 pillars that you need to consider. Is number 1 is the confidentiality. So you archive, just make sure that that content is secure. So make sure that you've got you secure the content through a password. Make sure that only specific people can have access to it. The integrity. So basically make sure that there is a non-repudiation, meaning that when you archive it, make sure that the content is not going to change. so that there's no issues, there's no question to it. And of course, make sure that this content is available. And that's why in general, we recommend archiving like in PDF for the format and then Excel to extract the data. Archiving is something also we're going to talk about. So two types of archiving, pseudo archival. So essentially this is the first step to go to an archival process to archiving. Essentially here, what we're going to present is we're able to hide the content from the user. So basically here is, let's say there's a content that you see that has not been used in the past 13 months. You don't want to completely archive it because you're thinking, hey, maybe the business user is going to get back to me and will be wanting to have access to it. So here, basically, essentially, we're able with 360 to hide that content. And if one day the business user says, you know what, I need to get that content back, basically the admin here has got an entire list of the content has been pseudo archived, and he can actually unhide it because essentially it never left where it was just hidden. And then let's say after the pseudo archival, there's no feedback from the users, you're actually able to archive the content, move it from BusinessObjects. So and then the last part we're going to talk about is about the bursting. So it's a good practice as well to plan your archiving. And what you can do here is when you send out instances, you can actually start to plan for your archiving at the same time, or just you're running it once for users, just use the same run, so the same pass essentially, so not to put more load, to handle the archiving at the same time. So Evan, I'll pass it over to you for your demo here.
Okay, thank you, Bruno. So I'm just going to give me a second here to share my screen.
Thank you. Thank you. If you got questions, please feel free to add them in the chat box. Also, there is a form that Ben is going to share here. If you have some, if you want to share us which version you're on today in BusinessObjects, let us know what works well, what does not work well. We'd be more than happy to hear about that in that form. And if you want to know, hey, what people are using in terms of version, what is the what's the best to perform certain type of actions, please feel free to fill up that form. It'll just take you 2 minutes. So Evan, yeah, we see your screen, so go for it.
Perfect, thank you. So I'm just going to log on to my 360Suite here, and I'll provide a password. And if you haven't seen the new version of 360Suite now, as you can see, we've got some nice KPIs sitting on our home screen here. But I'm just going to get straight to the point and start looking at archival here. And first thing I'm going to do is start looking at pseudo archiving that Bruno was talking about earlier. And from here, we can actually create what's termed a task, which I can look at here. And you can see that inside of this environment here, I have an archived resources pseudo archive task here. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to show you exactly what I created earlier. Okay, so this particular task turns around and says, okay, I'm going to run, and I've got my parameters. I obviously have my schedule information here. Essentially, I'm just going to run it as on demand here. And in the process here, I turn around and say, I want to archive these documents. And then inside of here is going to be the rule that actually drives whether or not this is going to be, quote, pseudo archived. So inside of here, it says, okay, well, identify to me exactly when you want me to actually, essentially archive this on the platform and remove it from user visibility. So in this particular instance, you've got two options. You can either put some information in the description field and use that, or you can basically add a keyword into the keyword field of that document. In this particular instance, it's going to look for the value pseudo archive inside of that key value. Okay, so that is the situation sitting here. So what I'm going to do now is just quickly go through and look at my public folders. And inside of here, I have a couple of reports that we can take a look at. So inside of the demonstrations folder and inside of archive, inside of the 360 view, beg your pardon, inside archive, I have a pseudo archive folder here. So let me just open this here. Okay. And as you can see, there are four different reports here. If I was to actually just highlight on this particular report here, okay, and update this report, okay, one of the things you'll notice is the word sudo archive inside of here. So what actually happened was I actually created this archive report here, and then I ran the extract to show that this value is again available in 360Is. But in this particular instance, what I'm going to do is I actually want to sudo archive this one as well. Okay, so I'm just going to go into here and I'm going to type in sudo archive. Like that. So hopefully I've spelled it correctly. So I'm going to put sudo archive and I'm going to update here. Again, showing that we can do all the actions of the CMC inside of 360 here. So as you can see, I've got two instances here where that's the case. And in this instance, I'm not going to actually use that. So I'm going to leave these without the archive. So essentially in this particular instance, I'm going to get rid of Q1 and Q2, and then Q3 and Q4 I want to leave in place. Okay, so we know the architecture now. So I'm just going to go back to that particular task again, the administrative task. And as you can see, we have the archived, the sudo archive sudo reports here. And I'm just going to run that job. And after a little bit of startup time, it will start to launch the task. And inside that task, it will actually then give me information about that. So as you can see, it changed the pending, so it should start to go into this task launching here. The first task always takes the longest. And then we're just going to click into the running state and see if it just finished it here. Okay, so that was just run just this minute ago. So I can now just look at the log here, and we can actually see the log here. We can see that that Q2 and Q1 have both now been archived. Okay, so in the log, we can see that. So if I now go back to my public folders, okay, I'm still logged on as me. And incidentally, just to let you know, I am an administrator on this machine. So E. Davis here as the user is an administrator on this machine. Okay, so even though I'm an administrator, I'm going to navigate down to 360 View. I'm going to go into my archive directory. I'm going to go into my sudo archive directory, and I'm going to open that. Okay, and what you're going to see is that I can only see two reports. So again, these reports have been made invisible to me, so I can't see them. However, they are still there. So let me just log off here. And now I'm going to actually log on as the administrator. So I'm just going to remove this account. And I'm actually going to log on as the administrator user, as opposed to just being a member of that group. So I'm just going to quickly get my secured password here for the administrator, and that should take a second here. So let me just quickly pick that up. And in here, there. That's it. So now let me go straight back to those documents again. Back to public folders, back to demonstrations. Again, back into that same hierarchy that we were looking at before. So going back into 360 View, archive, and now sudo archive, and I open that. And as you can see, as the administrator, I can see all four of those documents. So again, we have logically deleted them in the sense that E. Davis can't look at them. But as you can see, the administrator still has access to them. And of course, if we were to run an extract now and populate the data warehouse for 360Is, we would see that we now have two instances inside of that of the documents where we have the sudo archive tag applied, which again, we can then run a report to potentially identify which documents. We could then, do all kinds of administrative things to actually make sure that the users are aware of these. We can send out standard reports saying these reports are going to be archived, etc., and use that as the basis to send those out. So that is sudo archiving. And unless there are any questions, I think I might just go straight on to the physical archiving, Bruno.
To that, and then we can look at the questions at the end.
Okay. So again, as Bruno mentioned, physical archiving is completely different. We're naturally now going to take that off the platform, and we're going to take the instances that we have on the platform, and we're going to move them out to external storage. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is via another particular task here. And this task is in fact available to me here, and it's called Archive IT Scheduled Reports here. Again, one that I prepared earlier. So let me just quickly update this and show you what's going on here. Okay, so again, we have the situation of giving it a title and obviously setting it to run now, as we would do for a demo. And in the process, rather than doing archiving resources, we're actually going to do archiving of instances. And what we're going to do is we're going to just click on here, and that's going to take us into the actual process itself. And it's going to say, okay, when I archive my instances, I want to send them out to the file system. Which file do you want to go to? I want to go out to this destination here. Okay, so this is where I want to send them in this particular instance. Okay, and what's going to be used to drive that? How am I going to determine which particular folders or documents I actually want to take off the platform and move into that external directory? Well, that's all contained within a file, this particular upload file. Now you can see here, there's a scheduled IT folders document here. So let me just quickly describe the process to start here. So essentially, one of the aspects of this in the 360Suite environment is that of being able to pull information out of the system and then basically use that information to basically then go and do these updates or activities on the system. So the first thing we need to do is to pull out information about that system. So we actually have a documentation task that's part of our 360Suite. And what we'll do is we can actually send out information about all the public folders in our system. So as you can see here, you've got all the different folders that we have now. This is a demo system, so it's obviously, not necessarily going to be quite as big as what you might have, but again, you can see the file path, the name, and so forth. But one of the key elements here is you can see the ID field. Okay, so again, in this scenario, we're going to actually identify that we actually want to actually archive the scheduled reports for the IT business group here. So in this instance, we have a folder here called scheduled reports with a subfolder called IT and so forth. And inside of here, we have an ID 216060. Okay, and that is that folder. Okay, so we know that that's the folder we need to talk to. So when we do that, we say, okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to provide another input here, which is in fact is going to be the selected archive folders. So what we do here now is we say, oh, we're going to take that one value, that 216060, and that's the root. That's the root of our archive, and anything underneath that, whether it be subfolders or documents, and that could be any layer in that hierarchy, that will also get pulled in as well. Okay, so that's going to be driving the file. So there's two steps. First, identify the IDs of the things that you want to archive, and then put them into a file so that we can then use that to drive the archival process. So I'm just going to limit that down. So this is the file here, that scheduled IT reports, and then I uploaded that file, just copied into here to basically identify that that's what I'm going to do. I can also, as I said, identify where I want to put it. Okay, so I'm placing this particular thing onto a C drive. Obviously, you'd probably have a shared drive out there somewhere in your environment that you'd probably utilize for this. Again, you could remove the extracted instances. So again, when I've actually archived them, I can then remove them from the platform at the same time. And this is, of course, what Bruno was talking about, liberating expensive disk space and moving it out to potentially cheaper environments. Again, I can give it an instance name, because obviously one of the key points with instances, especially if you happen to give the instance name the same one each time, how do I differentiate between the different instances? Well, we actually have different arguments in here. So essentially, these are kind of runtime parameters that will be replaced at runtime. So in this particular instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the task name here, which is archive instances, to be part of that file name, and then I'm going to put in the owner, which will be me, and then the ID of that, the password, the SIID, which hopefully will uniquely identify that, and then the date. Okay, so this is the information that I'm going to store about each file when I archive them. Okay, so again, I can just process that. Again, and notifications, I can be set up here to be notified if on the event of warnings and failures. I can also trigger events and so forth. This is standard 360Suite here, but again, we can have the confirmation here. We can see the detailed overview. As you can see, it's going to pull down all the information about what you're going to be doing in here. So I'm just going to update that, or actually just going to click it, and I'm going to actually run this. Okay, so I'm just going to run that particular action. As you can see, that task launched a lot quicker now, as it's the second task, and it should be now in a running state, or will soon be in a running state. What's the date today?
I think, yeah, I think it's on we're the 16th, so it should be fine. I think you just got it.
Yeah, I think I got it.
Fast.
Okay, so let me just do this, and let me just display the log. Okay, and the log is just going to tell you, hey, I'm just going to send all of this information out. I decided to make sure I included the different types of data. And again, you can just see these different instances archived. And if I'm just to now go back onto my server, okay, and this is the server that I have, my demo server here. And I just quickly go through here. I'm just going to click on this, and then I go to my C drive. And it was under demonstration, 360 view, archive, scheduled IT reports, and there you see them. And you can see that format being in here, the task, my name, the ID, and so forth. And of course, they're going to come out in whatever format that you actually have on that platform itself. Okay, so if you've been generating them Excel and PDF, then that's going to be the format that they send out, which is actually 99% of the format we ever send out. If we're ever scheduling stuff off to destinations, typically we're not doing it in Crystal Reports format or Webby format. We're sending it out to the business, so it may be in PDF format or maybe in Excel format. So the idea that you're going to be sending it out in generating instances in PDF and Excel format is the normal. It's not the exception. So typically you'd see that these would be PDF and Excel documents pretty much exclusively. Again, a demo system, we're not going to be exactly the same. So again, we've taken that content off. Had we set that flag to actually remove those instances would now not be on the platform either. So that's, again, is the second stage. So we have the let's sudo archive, let's legitimately pull stuff off. Now, how do we actually engage in creating what you might call an ongoing archiving process? And this is when we start to use cast.
Yeah, so here, just one question. We have a question when you were showing the archiving. There's a question saying if the email address is not a business object user, it's only part of the query result. Will it still show the email address?
So you're sending the instance to the file, yeah.
Yeah, so if the email address is not a business objects user, so I think that's when you were actually showing like the archiving,
yes,
before. Will it still show the email address?
So the archive, the file is not. I'm not sure I fully understand the question.
You know what? Let me push you in the chat if you're, or we can address that question maybe. Yeah. I just sent it to you in the in the chat of the session. So maybe you can address it after.
Sure.
Okay, let's move on then.
Okay. Let's do, so now we're going to look at the idea of actually putting in what you might call, quote, a real-time archival strategy, which is you actually generate the archival process at the same time as you're actually delivering the content to the business. Okay, so let me just quickly go back to here and okay, so let me go back to 360Suite here. So let me just go back to, okay, I'm still logged on here. Okay, excellent. So cast, again, is a different kettle of fish. So what we do inside of the scheduling and delivery here is we actually create tasks. What we're going to do is we're going to deliberately set these up to execute instance management on the platform, generate the instances on the platform, and actually, as part of the process, immediately deliver those out to the business user, typically via email or writing to a file and so on. Okay, so I have a couple of parts here. So the key point is to identify that what drives this process is essentially what we term a destination list. What the destination list does, it basically includes all of the information that we need in order to be able to manage what's going on. So inside here, we basically have these different destination lists, and I can edit this particular destination list and show you what's going on here. Please note that we can actually maintain destination lists in a whole different series of different vehicles. So it could be Excel, CSV. Again, you could actually write a SQL query that you might have against a master customer database or whatever, that you can actually retrieve the information from a database. You can actually run a report on the BusinessObjects platform and use that as the feed. We have a limited capacity to be able to include into specific values in app. In other words, I can go into the application itself and place the specific values. Again, that's used mostly for testing purposes and so forth. And again, here's the support for Google Sheets. So inside of here, we actually have a file, and this file here is the file that's actually going to be used to drive this. So let me just open up that file and show you that file. So let's just go back down here. And in my demo here, I will just quickly pick up this file and show you this. And that should be now demonstrated in the screen for you.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So as you can see here, there are a couple of key fields. There's a destination type and the destination itself, and then format. So these are basically the three key fields that need to be introduced into every destination list. So without these three fields, it's just not going to function. So all three fields need to be present. The first denotes what type of destination are we having. So certain supported things are file, email, FTP sites, SharePoint sites, and so on. Okay, so as you can see, you denote which type of destination that you have in this particular scenario. Now, in this one, just to make things quick and simple, I've actually identified them. I'm just going to generate files. Now, this could have then been email. So if the instance type was email, then inside of destination, I'd have had the list of 1, 2, 3, or however many emails this particular job needs to be sent to. So how many people are on that destination list? So again, email is a supported thing in here. And typically when you're doing this in real time, you'll be delivering out to the business as well as generating your archive copies. So again, you might have emails included inside of here as well. You'll also see the destination. As I said, this will be specific to which kind of destination we're going here. But as you can see, what we're going to do in this scenario is we're actually going to write out to this particular file location here. Of course, we can also support SharePoint. Obviously, the specifics of that are going to be somewhat different in terms of that destination. But also be aware, obviously, this is a managed, secured environment as well. So we're taking secured content and transporting it into another secured environment here. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things here. Obviously, the format. Now, in this instance, we're going to use PDF pretty much exclusively, but also we can generate in Excel format as well. And then we're also going to put in some additional fields in here that we're actually going to utilize as part of this bursting process. So we're going to put in the author, and we're also going to do a data classification for this particular report as well. So in this particular instance, this prompted year month report has been designated by IT as being restricted. So therefore, only certain people can actually see that. You can also see in this instance that we have two values here, year and quarter. Anybody that's ever dealt with the eFashion universe will realize that obviously those are two fields inside of eFashion. And we're going to supply that parameter in certain circumstances. And we're going to actually not provide it because it's an optional parameter. So in this scenario, again, we're going to break this down by each year, again, potentially for archival processes. Then we're going to generate one for all years. So in other words, it's going to be an aggregation of the others. And then we're going to send two, one in Excel format and one in PDF format for all situations to our SharePoint site. We're not going to implement the quarter prompt, though we could if we wanted to, and if we were delivering to the business, chances are we'd be breaking it down by quarters and things like that. But also note that there's an encrypted password field, so we can actually go in and encrypt the password as part of the standard delivery here. And then finally, there's another value here, which is showing you the delivered file name, and that's sales by year. So you can actually see that this is going to be used to actually say, what am I going to use as the file name? I'm actually going to put a value inside this field here to be able to say, yep, this is the file name we're going to deliver. So let me just shut that down for the moment. And as you can see, that's the value here that's actually going to be used to drive that. Okay, it does give you a little bit of a preview here, showing you the different destination lists and so forth. And again, you could do the mapping and all that sort of business as well. Okay, so again, map to the destination type, and so on. Okay, so that's the thing here. So I'm just going to close that. And that's the destinations. Please note, if you're thinking, oh, how do I encrypt the password? We actually provide a little utility up here for you. So again, you just click on that, and you give you a password. It'll encrypt it. It'll create a copy, and then it'll actually allow you then to paste that into that field to allow that to be an encrypted password. So again, we made things a little easy for you in that respect. Okay, so we have as I said, we have the driver file now, the destination list, which is going to drive that process, and we have the task here. So again, all I need to do at this stage is to go look at this particular task. Okay, so this is going to go through, and here we have the actual DC user group here set up here. So I'll just quickly update this task. And inside here, again, the parameters are the same. You're used to the screen now, the frequency. Obviously, we're going to run this now. And then documents, I then need to identify which documents do I actually want to burst out into the directory here. Now, for the sake of simplicity, I've actually just got the one document. There's nothing preventing you from having multiple documents that you could actually be sending out at the same time. So I'm just going to click next. The configuration here, again, we can see, well, what destination list type do you have? Well, actually, I've got it in an Excel file. We just looked at it. And which one is it? Here it is. This is the Excel file that we were looking at earlier. And as you can see, here's the mapping that's going from that destination column. It's the destination type, and format. And we're just mapping those values because those are the required values, as I mentioned before. And again, additional kind of standard operating stuff here. Prompts. Interesting thing with prompts is, again, this is a very simple report. It actually has, as we know, 2 prompts, both of which are actually optional in this particular instance. But obviously, in some scenarios, we are actually going to be using one of the prompts, i.e. the year. We know that we're going to be applying the year prompt because we actually set that information in the destination list. But we can do one of 2 things here. We can actually, especially in a scenario when you have multiple documents, you may have like a global value for year, or you have a prompt for year, and you'd like to apply that same prompt for each of the documents that you have in the burst. Very simple process. You actually would then turn around and say, I'm now going to enter that value here in the global. And then at the local document level, notice that this is now italicized, and I can't go in there and actually change the value because that's going to be brought down from here. And again, I could go in here and actually go in and add my other value at the local level if I wanted to for the quarter. Okay, so just a way of being able to kind of like rationalize your prompts across multiple documents to allow for global settings to keep consistency. And then obviously at the local level, you can then apply the values as well. Filters, again, this is a way of, reports have filters. And if you want to use those filters, again, they could be done at a global or a local level. And again, you can see that you can actually go through and add these various filters and so forth. And also with this new environment, we haven't seen this for a little while. We're actually able to kind of like change these to ands and ors and add another filter group. So we can actually make these quite complex now. In this particular instance, where we're not going to do anything here, we're just going to delete those because I don't want to mess things up. But again, the capacity to apply filters here, again, for consistency as needed. Again, you can pull certain reports out as necessary. If you've got a group of reports, you can, again, be able to manage those on an as-need basis. We're not going to do that in this particular instance. Then we're going to look at the options. Again, some of these options will be things that are standard to business objects as to whether you'd use a server group to process and so on. Notice here that in the instance where we have empty documents, we've decided that we're going to send them. So if you get empty documents, you're going to send those documents. Sometimes that's, what the people want. Other times they don't. So again, this is a configurable entity. And when we send them, we're going to use that % curly brace, delivered file name, curly brace. If you remember, that was actually a value that we had inside of that Excel spreadsheet that we were using as the destination list. So again, as you can see in that scenario, we're going to, when we actually write out the file name, whatever we see in that value is what we're going to write. Okay, so we'll actually see that when we run the task now. And one other nice feature is the ability to actually integrate directly into the PDF document itself actual metadata that's coming from our environment, if you like, a way of being able to transmit information into that archived document that could then have business relevance. So in this scenario, I just say that I am going to customize the PDF metadata, and I'm going to actually, in the column, the keywords column, I'm going to map in whatever I put into my destination list data classification column. If you remember, it was the pound restricted. It was the data classification that was in that column. And then the author, I think I put in Wiiisdom IT support. So that's basically the author of the document. Again, a contact. Who would you actually go and talk to if you wanted to talk about the document and so forth? The other thing I've done also is to encrypt the password. Okay, and also identify which column that encrypted password was from. And if you remember, we had that encrypted kind of set of text inside here. Again, you could do other features in here, which I'm not going to be able to show you today, but you can merge multiple PDFs into a single document. So there's a lot of other sophisticated stuff that you can do. And then obviously you can send these email options. So if I was going to send out stuff into email, obviously I can extract all the various values inside here. I can also determine whether or not I'm going to, if someone receives 5 instances of a report, are they going to get 5 emails, or are they going to get 1 email with 5 instances? All of that sort of stuff that actually makes life a lot easier. And then notifications, trigger events, confirmation. Again, confirmation. The detailed view will give us all of the appropriate values that we've set here. Okay, so I've not updated that, and I'm now going to run that task.
And by the way, everything we do while it's running it's a single pass. So
yeah,
it's basically going to essentially put a lot less load on your server because it just runs once.
Right. And actually, I think it's running now. Yes. So actually, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to look at the log to actually show that actually happening inside the log here. So as I display this log, okay, as you can see, it's going to apply these values. You remember it's applying 2014, 2015. These are obviously unique instances. So I'm generating these values here. Okay. And then as you can see, I generate one that doesn't have any values. Okay. Schedule number 7, I think it is. And then I'm scheduling the same one here, which is going to be the one that's going out to SharePoint in PDF format. And this is the one going out to SharePoint in Excel format. Notice a very important thing here, reusing. So if there's a situation where you're basically sending the same information to multiple destinations, which is often a case with auditing, then you're obviously reusing. So the scheduled number of instances on the platform is being rationalized to make sure it doesn't schedule more than it needs to. So this is, again, exactly what Bruno was referencing before here. So as you can see, 7C0 failed. So now it's waiting for the instances to be processed. So let me just go in and look at that log again. Is it still there, or is it now finished?
Finished.
Looks like it's finished. Okay, so let's have a quick the complete log. Again, we'll just go down to the bottom. And as you can see, here's the different instances. So these are the instances we generated, which is actually 3 instances less than was actually in our destination list. So we actually reused 1 instance 3 times here. And again, it's going to send out to the different environments. As you can see, this is where I was looking to send it out here. And obviously here is my SharePoint site here. So let me just quickly access the server where I actually sent this information. And we should be able to access it from here. So I'm going to go back again to my local disk. I'm going to go back to my demonstrations. I'm going to go back to here, archive reports. Here's that prompted year month. Remember, that was the top of the tree. And now we start to see these broken out reports. So let me try and open one of these. So I'm going to open the sales for year and quarter. So I open up this report. And the first thing it's going to do is say, hey, this is password protected. Enter the password. So I'm going to just type in the password. Click open. And as you can see, this has been broken down by 2014, and that's it. And that's the end of the story. So that's the end of that. So again, it's been filtered on 2014. It only has 2014 data. The other key point is if I look at the actual document properties inside of this PDF document, as you can see there's Wiiisdom IT support being mapped into the author field. And you can also see that pound restricted value being mapped into the keywords field, which is exactly what we did inside of the task. I'm just going to close that. So as you can see, password protected and also set up as required. And then we're going to just quickly go to my SharePoint site. So I'm just going to bring up my browser again. And now I'm just going to click on this and I have a link to my SharePoint site here. So here's my SharePoint site. If you're looking at the details there, then there's actually, it's going to a test volume. And as you can see, 3 minutes ago, I generated this sales by year by quarter in PDF format. And here you can see it in Excel format as well. So again, long story short, as they say, we're going to bring, this can be bought as part of a standard delivery mechanism. So typically what you would see is email destinations being set up in the start here, and then similarly writing the same information out to the file and all doing it in one fell swoop so that your archival process ready for your auditors to have a look at, as well as delivering the business, is all done within one process, within one task, as they say, and also optimized to make sure that we limit the amount of instance generation on the platform itself. So with that, I will conclude and stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Evan. And just to know as well is you can concatenate basically all the documents that you're sending. So for example, Bob, he might want page 1 to 5 and 6 to 20. And then at the same time from the same document, maybe Mike wants to get 1 to 2, 7 to 8, and then 23 to 26. So you can basically do concatenation out of that. We've got one question from Gregory from here. Please advise, can the 360Suite scheduling functions be called via API so it can be called via an enterprise BaaS scheduling process like Control M?
Yes. So all our scheduling, in fact, I'm stop sharing now, but yes, that is an integral part of the scheduling engine, is the capacity to not only allow you to actually have the external scheduler schedule the information, but also to retrieve back the kind of status information of the success and so forth, that schedule. So yes, and we have a number of clients that use external schedulers with our scheduling engine. Yeah.